Hi everyone and welcome to another GC9x video. I'm Carl, and today we're going to be looking at a Sonic Game Gear game, Sonic Triple Trouble, I believe is the correct name for this one. Joining me today is Bobinator.
Hello.
Muteki.
Hello!
And Snarboo.
Hey there, guys.
And this is the intro to the game. It comes with a complete intro. It doesn't just start with the title screen.
Right. It's very short intro. Doesn't explain much of the plot. If I remember right, Dr. Bobinator took all the Chaos Emeralds, but his lab blew up, so they got scattered. Now there's this new guy named Knack the Weasel. We're never gonna see him again, but now he's trying to get the emeralds. And Knuckles is there too, because he's a jerk.
Hence Triple Trouble. Yep.
I like that they invented a new guy to go along with Knuckles being a jerk. Just because, you know, let's just do that.
So, as you
He's
saw,
the
we have
wily
two...
coyote of the Sonic series. Sorry.
So we have two playable characters in this game, Sonic and Tails. Tails is basically easy mode, so I decided to go with Sonic.
Do you regret that decision?
And unless we have a new power-up, we have the spring that you can bounce around on. It's not very useful, because you can't jump on enemies with it, but it does help you jump a little bit higher, which I guess is okay.
This is the
the main reason to
only
use it
game to
here
feature
is
that?
that... Yes. Well, it's based on the Pogo Spring from Sonic Chaos, which was not like a power-up, it was like a permanent item placed in specific parts of certain stages. In particular, the one called Scrambled Egg Zone, I believe? Or something like that. I think that's actually the level in Sonic 2. It's difficult to keep all of the names specific, but it's like the third or fourth stage, and it's like turquoise colored or bluish, and mostly set kind of in the sky, looks a little like Hilltop from Sonic 2.
So another neat thing is that we can go into roll from springs, which is really useful. It'd been nice if the mainline some of the games have that, but they don't. I guess you kind of need that on the Game Gear screen, though.
Yeah.
Right, because the screen is so much smaller.
Oh, you missed the special stage ring. Or not ring, but power-up, I should say.
Yeah, the Chaos Emerald.
I think
Yeah,
those are
there's
only
like-
Act 2.
Oh no, there's one in every single act. There's a, it's right at the end of the level here, but it's at the very top of the stage, so it's difficult to reach as Sonic. Because as you mentioned, Tails is easier mode, specifically because he has, as he did in the previous game, Sonic Chaos, the ability to fly. In fact, this game is more than anything almost a direct sequel specifically to Sonic Chaos, which was called Sonic and Tails in Japan, and is known, this one is known in Japan as Sonic and Tails 2.
Right.
Yeah. Is that what you were going to say, Bob?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, sorry for stealing your line then.
But yeah, I wasn't aware that every stage had a special stage.
Yeah, they are hard to find, and you need to have 50 rings in order to get to it. But
I'm
there
not
is
getting
one...
a good ending. Spoilers.
Oh no. Well, I guess you'll just have to play it yourself, which you can do if you have Sonic Gems Collection, a 3DS with internet access, or Sonic Adventure DX 2004 for PC or GameCube. Like, the new Steam release of Sonic Adventure DX unfortunately does not include any of the Game Gear games. And
That's
even
they
then, you
sell them
still
that
have to
exactly.
right?
Oh,
I don't know. It's kind of a shame because there's no easy way to sort of officially get them on PC, so you kind of have to resort to hacky emulation strategies in order to play it, and give your money directly to Sega. And
So,
in fact,
you'll
what a lot
notice-
of people do is just... Oh, sorry.
you'll notice that we also have rocket boots. They're kind of cool, but they don't last very long, so you can't really do much with them.
Yeah,
There's a
they
lot
were
of new
more
gimmicks in this game that you can't really do much with, which is kind of disappointing.
Yeah. The rocket shoes showed up in Sonic Chaos as well. They were, I think, a little bit more useful there because that game had lots more rings just sort of showing up in rows in the middle of the sky, and in order to get to a special stage, you had to collect 100 rings as Sonic. So it sort of made sense to use the rocket shoes to collect the lines of rings. Here, it's hard to say, oh, you want the rocket shoes because they're particularly useful, but they're just sort of there. But I will say, I can understand why you were confused about the Act 2 special stage gimmick mechanic thing, because in the sort of direct sequel to this, Sonic Blast, or G-Sonic, which was on both Master System and Game Gear, special stages for Chaos... Oh god, it's awful. But yes, on that game, in order to get to a special stage that contained an emerald, you had to search for a single gold ring that was hiding specifically in Act 2. You didn't have to collect 50 rings in order to access it, but you did still have to do that, which is, you know...
Oh, there was the
find
wonder,
it.
and I missed it.
Yep.
Once you see it and you can't reach it, it's just gone.
Yeah, there are a number of places where the Emerald Monitor, you almost have to know where it is beforehand, or more generously, perhaps, play as Tails.
If I remember right, I don't think Tails can get the best ending in this game, can he?
Yes, he can. He's got access to the special stages as well. You're thinking of Sonic Chaos, where he doesn't have to get the emeralds as well. It is not only easy mode in that game, but almost insultingly easy mode, because he has like 5 lives and several continues.
Here's Act 3, which is generally a boss act on every zone.
Yep. As with Sonic CD, all of the Sonic games developed by Aspect Corp have a very short Act 3 where you mostly grab a few rings and then have a boss encounter. Aspect started developing Sonic Game Gear games with Sonic 2, which was based off of a lot of code and graphics from the very first Sonic for Game Gear and Master System, which was by Ancient, which you may know is the company that had Yuzo Koshiro on its staff, associated with Revenge of Shinobi and the Streets of Rage games, among others. In addition to those two companies, there was like at least one other one that was making specifically Sonic-themed Game Gear games, and that's called Minato Giken, who made the not particularly interesting Sonic Labyrinth. But they also made Dynamite Heady for Game Gear. Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. It's not awful, but it's not horrifyingly bad, the way Sonic Blast is.
I like how they took Knuckles' sprite directly from Sonic 3.
Yep,
Like they
just downsampled
they
it, yeah.
redrew Sonic, but they didn't bother with Knuckles.
Yep, he chuckles, he hits a switch, and then everything goes on fire. It's like they looked from a couple of prototype development screenshots of Sonic 3 and built that sequence around that.
Now, something I wanted to point out from about the previous stage, I really appreciate that it had like a spring-based gimmick to it, because the trees had springs in them, and, you know, the boss, you know, dropped those turtles that have springs in it, you know, the main enemy of the zone, so... And this has a sort of a, what is it, a rail...
Right, they've got the
rail cart sort of theme going on.
Yeah.
This game does a pretty good job of
but yeah.
Of mixing up its gimmicks, which I appreciate. It just doesn't always use
Oh yeah,
enough.
distinguishing its stages, like you mean? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true. Out of at least all of the Aspect-designed Sonic games, this is probably the pinnacle of them, which makes the fact that it was only on Game Gear and never on Master System the only one of the Aspect Sonic games for this to be the case is all the more infuriating. Oh, that's right, there was another company involved with the port of Sonic Spinball. I don't actually know their name off the top of my head, but it was probably some, like, Sega of Europe or Sega of America staff, I think, based on the credits. So it is sort of funny that, you know, no one in main Sega ever touched any of these outside of, like, maybe some vague, like, high-level supervisory stuff, and mostly just allowed them to do whatever they wanted. And there are a number of times where the Game Gear Sonics are sort of innovating in ways that even the other games don't. The first game to be titled Sonic 2 came out on Game Gear. And it was, I'd say it's more like Sonic CD, but, you know, it is what it is. And the first game in which Tails flies is Sonic Chaos, which came out a little after the Genesis Sonic 2. And like the first like specifically pinball mechanic in a Sonic game is the special stages in Sonic 1 for Game Gear and Master System, because it has flippers. Whereas even if those special stages are very obviously based on the pachinko machines,
Zone?
yeah, Spring Yard Zone
And-
with their spring evolves.
I
and
get the
things.
monitor that time, but I don't have enough rings, so
Yeah.
screw me.
So it's just completely useless, which is strange.
Oh, so you have to get rings too. Yes,
it
that's
requires
right.
50 rings.
Wow, you got
That
screwed there.
was quite a shot.
This is going to happen a lot, I'll tell you that right now. This game gets... I did manage to beat this game on my actual Game Gear when I was pretty young, but I had a really hard time this time around, I'm not going to lie.
Well, they were in
Yeah,
leagues with,
if you haven't played it
you
in
know,
a while,
Duracell.
Yeah, it can be hard to play this game compared especially to Sonic Chaos. But I will say, in terms of pure cheapness, it still has nothing over Sonic 2 for Game Gear and Master System. Especially the Game Gear version, because it not only has the smaller screen resolution to work with, but is filled with even cheaper traps than Master System Sonic 2 is. Especially Green Hills Zone Act 3, with its blind jumps over spiked line pits where you have no rings.
I would very well say that Sonic 2 Game Gear is like the hardest game in the series.
It's
And that's the one where you get the really bad ending if you don't get all the emeralds
Right,
right.
where
where
Tails
Tails
is
is
basically
always
dead.
fight to be dead, yes.
And Sonic is never truly happy again.
Yeah.
Are those mosquitoes? Is this the first instance of them? 'Cause-
No, that'd be
They were in
Sonic
Well, they
Sonic
showed up
CD.
in Sonic CD first.
So
but-
this one is after Sonic CD. So yeah, they've taken
yes,
those from
yeah,
CD.
this is like 94, in between I think Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles. Let me
And
check
here's
what
like the one
release
thing that
date
people
is.
remember from this game. This song and this boss fight. People love this song.
Yeah, the really kick-ass
Yeah, it's
train
on-
theme.
Yep, it showed up technically in Sonic Chaos if you hack the level select code in. If you do that, then you can hear this in the sound test. But
So were these games similar development time then, or did they take scrap material from Chaos and put it in this?
I'm not sure how much of this is obviously based on like stuff that they wanted to put in Chaos but might have run out of time for. There's
Chaos
not a whole
always
lot
felt
of
really
like in
unfinished
development
to me,
information.
So this might have really.
I mean, the Master System version is really cheap. My issue with Chaos isn't so much that it feels unfinished, but it feels like very much an obvious overcorrection to how difficult Sonic 2 was, where Sonic Chaos is honestly quite easy most of the time. But yeah, I
Too
can sort of
easy?
see why you'd think it feels unfinished, especially the Master System version. There are a lot of places where it feels unpolished, and they did a lot of touching up of the Master System version when they put it on Game Gear. There were a bunch of small, tiny improvements, changes, and subtle aesthetic tweaks that they made that are mostly for the better, or at least just simply different.
So
Like,
this
I
stage
don't think
didn't
there's much
actually
that makes it worse.
tell you that it was Act 3. It just transitioned straight into it, right?
Right. It's
Yeah,
the only
like, there
zone
wasn't
that
even,
does
like, a
that
little-
for some reason.
So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's one of the other reasons why it stands out so much. But yeah, there's no end of act tally at the end of Act 2. There isn't even like a brief show of the title card the way they have in Sonic 3's act transitions. It obviously feels like, oh yes, this part is clearly based on that aspect of Sonic 3 where acts transitioned into each other. But it's the only place where that happens in this game, and it's very strange that it does that. Like, all of the Aspect Game Gear games, if you're familiar with any of the other Sonic stuff, they do feel strange, just in general, relative to the rest of the series. They have a specific, almost internal logic to them and a lot of consistent ideas, but they do feel very much like their own beast, that sort of feel like they weren't developed with a lot of assistance.
It's pretty much like comparing the mainline Mario games to the Mario Land series.
Yes.
I'm also noticing, because I think people will be noticing as watching the video, The UI disappears sometimes, and it sometimes...
Mostly during the boss fights.
Yeah,
that's a
well,
boss
actually.
stage thing.
That's true of pretty much all of the Game Gear games, but then again, this and Sonic Chaos are the only ones where you actually get to fight the bosses with rings. Well, Sonic
assuming
Blast
that
too, but I
boss
don't
takes
like
a-
to think about that one.
The
guess
other
the
thing
boss
is
takes
the
too
UI
much
keeps
visual memory.
disappearing behind like the level assets. Now, is that an issue with the Game Gear, or is that a emulation problem?
No, I think that's specific to the Game Gear, because unlike the Genesis, it doesn't have as many layers to give priority. So when it says, I want this foreground to be in front of everything else, including sprites and stuff, that is an issue for sprites that include the display window.
Now this feels more like a Sonic CD level since you have those glass things straight up Collision Chaos.
Yep, and it's very bouncy too. Like that's the thing. In addition to sort of feeling like Super Mario Land, they also feel like the Genesis's answer to sort of R&D 1's take on Mario, which is Sonic CD.
Those tubes down the bottom remind me of maybe Oil Panic Zone.
Oil Ocean?
Oil
Yeah.
Ocean.
Oil
Yeah,
Ocean,
The one with the oil.
a little bit. Yeah.
You guys know what I'm talking about.
But this is an even springier level than the first stage was.
Also, good luck finding the bonus stages at this point. I'm pretty sure I couldn't find them past the first two
Yeah, I know.
zones.
They're
I
always
know-
really out of the way.
I think one of them's hiding in like the middle of the stage near the bottom. Like I think if you were somehow to be able to go left from here, you might find it. But I don't know if you can still access it. I do know that the second stage's special stage is on an upper part near the end of the level, and as Sonic, you have to use the Pogo Spring power-up in order to access it. So you only really get one shot, so it's easy to miss. Did you get any of the special stages in this, Bob?
I
or...
access one, I do not finish
Oh, okay.
it.
I see. The special stages are interesting because there are two forms to them. One of them is almost a standard 2D platforming level kind of design, sort of like what you had in Sonic Chaos, where the special stages weren't anything different from the normal game in terms of engine. And then there are two other ones where you're in the tornado and you have to collect rings in a sort of Sonic 2 style special stage.
Sadly, I don't get to
Like,
show off
there's-
that one.
Yeah, it's. I think in the
Those
Japanese,
ones are terrible, honestly, so...
Yeah. In the
It's
Japanese
the
version,
regular stage ones that are easier.
Yeah. Actually, I slightly disagree. After like the third or so, the 2D special stages are just filled with so many pits that you almost have to know where everything is before you see it, because there are some places that are just almost cruelly unforgiving.
I just couldn't wrap my head around the tornado
oh,
stages because of the
yeah.
way scaling works on the
Yeah, if
or the way they implemented scaling on the Game Gear.
yeah, it's
It's not quite Sonic 2. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's true. If you have trouble with it, it's very difficult to fully practice with it. And that's one thing that the Japanese version of this game has over the American version, is that they actually included a test special stage that you could practice on from the main menu.
Huh.
And yeah, that's actually like really helpful if your thought is, I don't know how to play this. Because then you can say, like, once I got my head around how you actually have to move your craft, like move the tornado in order to collect everything, the special stages with it aren't so hard. And there is one other thing about the special stages that I do want to point out again, because we're not going to show them. After the first one, they all have a boss encounter with the Knack the Weasel character, who is out there stealing all of the emeralds.
I actually really like Mac's character. I'm really sad they never really did anything with him.
Yep. Oh yeah, you found it.
I guess there's Rogue.
the emerald.
It's basically just him with boobs.
Sort of, yeah. I'm
Rouge,
surprised we've never seen a game with the two of them together. Or that perhaps he exists as maybe a Rouge equivalent in in Blaze the Cat universe from the Rush series, for example. Because the manual sort of explains the reason why he's hanging out in the special stages is that he's from an alternate dimension or something. I mean, not that what the manual says is particularly important, because, you know...
Is that
Sonic...
Are you telling me Are you telling me they planned out the whole Sonic Rush thing from the start?
Now, was
The
this
whole
from American
Eggman
or
Nega and all that stuff?
Oh,
Okay.
I have no idea how long they've had some of these Sonic concepts in the back burner. Because you go back before even Sonic 1 is made, and you have level designs that look like they came out of Sonic Unleashed.
So,
And
this thing about alternate dimensions, was this from American or Japanese manual? Because they diverged a lot.
I think it's from the American manual, but I'm not sure. I haven't looked at either in quite some time, and you know, that's one of the things I didn't bother to check before this. You know what a couple of these bosses remind me of? And you think I'm going to say Rocket Knight Adventures, but I'm going to say Sparkster.
Genesis or SNES?
Genesis specifically. I think they have a world
Yeah,
boss
the kind
that
of
moves
weedy
around
little
sort of
wimpy
like that.
bosses they had in that
Yeah.
game.
Well, they
And
have a
Knuckles
train
blows
boss
everything
at
up
the
again.
end of stage 1. I swear they have like a boss that attacks you sort of like that in one of the Sparkster games.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Maybe
you know
it's-
what that
maybe it's
boss
stage
reminded
one
me of?
from
The
Rocket Knight.
worm from Ristar, like in the first stage.
I think I know you.
Oh, the snake boss, you mean? Like
Yeah.
yeah, I can sort of see that too.
And I hope you like this skateboard, because we're never going to see it again after this level.
I'm
This
pretty
game
sure
is
it's a
just like...
snowboard.
Right. Did I say...
Yes.
Well, it
it's sort
skates on the snow, so you were half right.
Of, yeah. It's
Either
another
way,
one of
though,
those
I
things
hate
that's
how
like,
this game keeps introducing ideas that never show up again.
yeah, it's. We were sort of talking about this earlier with like 3D Sonic, but that's the big sin of this game, is that it introduces mechanics and ideas in a way that rarely give you much of an opportunity to practice with them before it becomes time to perform. Like, again, you needed that the pogo spring to access that special stage. You get one opportunity to use it before that, and it's quite likely, if you don't know what you're doing, that you're going to lose it.
Was that a flicky?
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Flickies don't give you anything, they come up on the sign.
Yep. Yeah,
Like,
all
sometimes
of
you'll
the
get extra
aspect.
lives or rings.
Yeah, all of the aspect Sonic games do that, where the signpost at the end. Actually, Sonic 1 did this too, but it was a little bit different. Where what you get on the signpost determines your end result. Like, if you get a picture of Sonic, that's worth a life. If you're playing as Sonic as Tails, it's worth like a point bonus. And
It's
the
not like
picture of
Sonic
Tails is
3
the
where it's-
opposite.
It's not like Sonic 3 where you time it right, you get a shield, it's just completely random.
Yeah. Like with Sonic 3 it wasn't timing, it was where it landed on the stage. So if you manipulated boss positions, you could get one-ups or Oh yeah, that's the thing about the snowboard we just saw. If you jump while you're in the air on it, you lose it, which is quite frustrating. Because when you're riding on it, yeah. Yeah, because you can use it more easily to get up there where the power-ups were. And if you see that breakable wall, that you can get up to there with the help of that snowboard. But otherwise...
And that's how you get to the bonus stage in this stage, or?
No, I don't think so. I think the special stage is elsewhere, or at least can be accessed without it.
Oh, you can't
What
get
the
up there without
snowboard
it.
does is it gives you a shortcut that you can't access any other way.
Ah, okay.
Now, one thing that I do like about this stage is that normal power-ups are accessible with both Sonic and Tails. Like, in Sonic Chaos, you could use the little shoe power-up thing only as Sonic. Actually, I take that back. There is one exception, I believe, which is that there is an equivalent to those rocket shoes in the underwater stage that I do not believe Tails possesses, but he has his own little capability in that stage, which we'll probably discuss later.
I've
we're going to be
noticed,
discussing it for a while. Because
you're-
we've got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Your rings don't come out all at once.
Yes.
I think you only lose like a percentage of when you get hit, which I guess makes up the fact that you've got such a small screen space to deal with.
Yeah. I think even then it maxes out at like 25 or so. But it's quite helpful because it means that, especially because you can't grab them all back at once, you know, that you get that.
I don't
Like
think
there is Okay,
I don't think you
no,
grab more,
I
like,
guess not,
5.
because you had like 70 rings and now you have like 36 instead, so it might just be like half-ish or so.
Okay, now
Let's
they're
see
all
here.
gone.
I think it's
so-
40.
Oh,
Maybe
that
if
could
you're
be,
at, like,
yeah,
a-
40 would make sense, because you had less than 40 and you lost them all. Or
I think
fewer than 40
Generations
if you
is
were to
actually-
be pedantic. Yeah, I think Generations
so-
and Unleashed both do something like that, because you can't easily grab all of the rings back again. And for as much as I will complain to the ends of the earth about how terrible Sonic Blast is, they are nice and consistent about it there as well, where any hit is going to take away 10 rings from you.
I can appreciate that. I guess they have to make some kind of compensation for dealing with a smaller screen.
Yeah, the small screen, the incredibly sloppy controls, the
Blurry
horrifying graphics, and the fact that the final boss gives you 99 rings to work with if you're going for the good ending with all of the emeralds. Don't play Sonic Blast if you value your sanity.
Hey, it's called
Here's
Robotic
another
Winter.
fun final boss. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
this is like the only Sonic game where like every version calls him robotic for whatever reason.
Yes, I don't think it's called Eggman Winter Zone in the Japanese version, which is sort of funny because, on the other hand, in Sonic 2 for the Genesis, you get Eggman's name plastered all over Wing Fortress Zone, excuse me, which was like the first time that I was aware that he was called Eggman anywhere. Between that and a couple of things from the internet, like the very early internet of the 90s that I had seen by way of my father. And these hits don't do anything. Oh, you gotta make this hit. If you fall down that pit right here, you die. But now, if you jump down it, which you will automatically, or no, never mind, you have to manually
Yeah, it
control
makes
Sonic.
you go down there, even though you
Now
think it might
it's
kill you.
safe to jump down. I don't know why.
And there's Knuckles chuckling, not flexing his muscles.
Unlike his pal Sonic, he's not supposed to chuckle, but clearly here he is.
Yeah, someone never... Well, maybe it's more of a snicker. Perhaps that's what it is. I always imagined that he was doing more of a Muttley-style, toothy, like,
And
snickery sound
here's where
when
my
he was
playthrough goes
in
to
Sonic
shit.
3.
I want to say right now, for anyone watching, we're probably going to edit this, but I want to apologize regardless, because this is where things get really painful.
This is already a very long level, and water levels in the handheld Sonic games have always been, like, much longer, much more labyrinthine, and just really, really sensitive to collecting air bubbles. Like, any of the Sonic water stages, you can mostly get by without having to worry about collecting air if you take the right routes, or particularly nimble with controlling Sonic underwater. But here, collecting air bubbles is pretty much a basic mechanic that's sort of integral to getting around. And to the point where you actually have these secondary bubbles that you ride around in the stage. They're not quite akin to Sonic 3's Bubble Shield, but bear a more than passing resemblance. date back at least to Sonic 2.
They briefly turned Sonic into a bimbo from Betty Boop. You guys will see it if you look up the character Bimbo.
Oh, oh.
I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, her
Right.
like
Oh,
boyfriend
right.
or whatever.
That's not the last time that Bimbo would inspire Sonic, as The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog has a stage that is entirely based on sequences from Bimbo's initiation, as I recall. Like, I don't know that the storytelling in Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog is something that I'll have much good to say. Like, it was okay, but I found its attempts at humor poor. But as sort of a history of animation project, it's actually quite interesting.
I'll say this. I appreciate Adventures because it's at least pretty close to the games, way more than whatever SatAm was.
Yes, I always describe that as Firefly for children.
Like, the thing with SatAm is that you could put any character into it and it would have been the exact same show.
Yeah, like, Sonic is sort of vaguely like Malcolm Reynolds, but even then is almost more of a throwaway character.
You could have put Artie Lightfoot in that show and it wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah.
Well, he would have ended up killing somebody though if it had been Artie Lightfoot. So
That suits the show a lot better. So, you know, Artie would have done a better job.
Sonic pulls out a gun and caps Dr. Robotnik's ass.
Yeah, I mean, Lightfoot doesn't mess around.
So this stage in particular is much easier as Tails.
Because he can swim.
Well, not even because he can swim, but because he doesn't have... If you know what you're doing, he doesn't have to worry about air at all. Or at least for the vast majority of the stage, because he has his own little mechanical craft that you can find and he gets to ride around in. Called
That's
the
right,
Sea
yes, he
Fox,
gets a submarine.
Yep,
I think
it
that's
shows
like the
up
only
again in
special,
his...
I think that's like the only special power-up he has. Compared to Sonic.
Well, he has a variation on the blast thing. I forget if he gets the snowboard or not. I want to say he does, but I'm not 100% certain. It's been a little while since I've played this, especially as Tails. I tend to prefer to play as Sonic because I think it makes the playthrough a little bit more interesting, just because the game isn't, like, incredibly trivial with Tails' abilities. You have to think a little bit more about where and how to get around in order to get especially the good ending.
I think I made a mistake picking Sonic, as you can see.
It's more interesting to see Sonic than watch Tails, you know?
True.
I think it's interesting to look at Sonic because, after all, he is the name on the cover. I think if you're going in here looking at this and thinking, oh, this is actually kind of tedious and frustrating, I'm not sure I want to play it, then you should definitely pick Tails, because he is much easier to play as. Between his... Yeah.
I was gonna say, just like the tubes from, what's the name? Chemical Zone have shown up.
Yeah,
Chemical Plant
yeah,
Zone, yeah.
Well, the Aspect Sonic games especially adore their tubes. Like, they really introduced them even before Chemical Plant did with Scrambled Egg Zone from Sonic 2. That's the one in question, I believe.
I wonder how much the two teams borrowed from each other in total.
You know, come to think of it, that is sort of surprising that they call it, Sleeping Egg Zone was the level in Sonic Chaos I meant earlier. But it is sort of funny that they call they call all of those Egg whatever, and then this one is Robotnik Winter, not like Frozen Egg Zone or something. Because the whole egg thing doesn't particularly make sense if you're not thinking, oh, well, it's because he's called Eggman. That's why.
So, I mean, is it called Robotnik Zone in the Japanese version you guys were
It
saying?
is, yeah.
Yes, that's what's so bizarre.
So, I mean,
Because
that
this is
means
the
that
only game in which that's...
Yeah, the Japanese teams had to be aware of that he was called Robotnik outside of Japan.
Yeah.
Because I could understand Sonic team knowing that because they were obviously working with STI, but this was developed purely in Japan, right? So.
Yeah, it was. Aspect is a Japanese company, and as near as I can tell, the Game Gear, I think, had a better, like, attach rate than the Genesis did in Japan. Like, at least relative to the rest of the world. I don't know how true that is.
I
Sonic's
imagine
gonna
that.
drown.
I could be
well,
wrong.
that's the
But
nice thing about the bubble
but haven't
mechanic is that
handhelds
you
always
can just...
been more popular in Japan?
I think so. I mean, it's... I think that's like one of the things with Japan is that handhelds were more popular there, and they also really sort of got into cell phones with like internet access much sooner than America did.
Well, they have those long train commutes, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Right. That's true. They rely on public transportation a lot more. So the idea of having a computing device with you on the go makes a lot more sense than it does here.
You should use public transport, people. It's good for the future and the environment.
And it reduces traffic because it means there are fewer cars on the road.
Yeah, but that's kind of a prisoner's dilemma thing, though. You know, if everyone uses public transport, then everyone will want to drive, because the drive will be faster. So, what do you guys think of the music in this game? I know you guys said you like the train thing, but a lot of this music to me has just kind of been like blips, really, like lots of just...
It's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of
It's-
bland.
Some of it's weird, and there's a lot of strange harmonic structure to it. Huh, you can cancel out of that by jumping.
I didn't even mean to do that.
I don't think I've ever managed to do that before. I wasn't aware you could.
Well, now it's gone. I can't use
That's-
it anymore.
This game has issues with the way that its power-ups work, as we've noted. But yeah, this is
Something notable about these games that I've noticed since we were talking about power-ups. There isn't a shield power-up in any of these games, is there?
You're
Sonic
right.
1 had it, and actually Sonic Blast finally brought it back.
With Sonic.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. It looks a little
Oh,
bit different in that
You
one,
missed
too.
it, so...
Oh,
Oh, and
yeah.
it spawns right after you die. That's great. Man.
That is like the most evil bubble placement, because you will have a very hard time reaching that point without your countdown timer getting close, and the bubbles spawn that far apart that if you miss the first one and you stay there, you will drown.
That is the most useless power-up ever, because you just hit a wall 2 seconds after
Yeah.
you pick it up.
I told you, power-ups in this game, you never get to use them.
Well, it gives you sort of the ability to swim. The way Mario with the frog suit does in Mario 3, I'd say, is a pretty close analog.
Now,
So
can
it's
you turn around when you're using the weird jets?
Actually,
Yeah.
that one I think you can. That's not true for the power up with the rocket shoes. Excuse me.
Okay, so then, yeah, it may not be as useless as it first appears, because you can move upwards, I suppose. Wow, that is just... These tubes are just
You're
aggravating.
gonna see a
Yep.
lot of these tubes.
Yeah,
The Final Zone
Aspect
loves
just
them, too.
loves their tubes. Tubes
Shoot
everywhere.
the tubes, dog meat.
Yeah.
Oh, could be worse. Could be headphone jack and mohawk.
Mohawk and headphone jack.
It's
Yeah.
sort of funny
We need
that
to talk
all of
that game one day.
We
Oh,
do not
that
need
would
to
be
talk about that
interesting.
game.
well,
I
don't
think
know
that
I would
double
want to
means that
play
we
it,
need to
but-
talk about that game.
I think I
Gotta
tried
double
watching
talk
video of it one time and it made me extremely motion sick.
Wouldn't it by like the...
Yeah, that's one of those games, even if you don't have motion sickness, it'll probably make you motion sick.
Wasn't it by the creator of Bubsy, or am I misremembering?
I don't think so.
That doesn't sound familiar to me, but I don't actually know who worked on the game, so it's theoretically possible.
I could have sworn there was like some connection to Bubsy, but maybe that's just my paranoid mind.
Well, they're both bad games. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
I don't know. Bubsy's clearly a strong, mighty number 9 out of Duke Nukem Forever.
Oh,
Come on
that's
now.
true. Yeah, that's fair.
Instantly dated this video. Oh yeah.
I do like that,
I like
you know,
that that's
Bubsy
relevant.
gets progressively better the more bad games people make. It's like, you know, this is actually okay now.
As another note, most of these bricks that you're seeing throughout the level that look like they can be broken because they have like visible cracks and stuff. The Sea Fox submarine that Tails has the ability to fire out projectiles, in addition to sort of being able to freely move around the water without having to worry about air supply. So it means that in addition to being your main way of taking out enemies, you can also use it to break through walls. Jump, jump, jump! Oh!
There
That
he
got
goes.
me the first time, too.
I want you to guess how many times it kills me. The answer is more
probably-
than once.
Probably as many times as it killed me the first time I got this far into the game, which was admittedly my first playthrough, but I'm going to say 3.
I'll have to remember if you're right or not. I guess I don't even remember anymore.
I think it's, this game, I don't know if it's not probably the first one, but it's very interesting that it incorporates basically an easy mode as a playable character rather than a difficulty setting.
Well, Contra Hardcores did that too with Brownie. And then the hard mode was, Fang.
The Fox dude, yeah, Fang, yeah.
I think was his name. I may have that wrong.
No, I think that's correct.
I mean, he's like a wolfman,
Yeah,
he's
Fang was
probably
a
called
wolfman.
Fang.
Cyborg Wolfman with biker pants.
Now, for the record, I have no idea why they decided to make all of these tiles like completely in the foreground, because none of them are passable. Like you can't go through them in any direction. So it's not like stuff was moving through the tiles that they had to be like, oh, this is supposed to go underneath it for visual effect. So it just seems like a sort of thoughtless decision that obscures the graphics.
Well, no, you do have some
there's
tiles
the
that
emerald.
Sonic goes behind. So I assume maybe it's just like an engine restriction that they have.
Oh, well, I guess that's true of the tunnels, but I was thinking more like the other hard blocks in the stage here. Like,
Yeah,
when
well,
it goes- yeah.
I think they're all on the exact same layer, so I don't
See,
think they...
if you even brush against the tubes, they'll just take you.
well,
You gotta watch out
What
for
I-
perfect vacuum fanatic tubes. They're very, very powerful.
what I mean is more that the Master System and Game Gear really only have one background layer. So everything is a single layer. Technically, what's causing these things to be put in the foreground is basically a priority flag for a specific tile. Now, it makes sense to have that flag set for the tunnels because Sonic's supposed to look like he's inside of them. But Sonic can't go inside of the hard tiles in this stage, so it doesn't make sense to put them in the foreground. It just makes it harder for you to tell, like, your rings and lives and things.
I just think maybe they, the way they set up their, like, level software, that they couldn't make that change.
Yeah, it could just be that they were kind of thoughtless at the time. And, well, this game probably wasn't super rushed. It was one thing that they didn't catch until kind of late. Like, this is obviously the weakest level in the game, and...
And there's a
the last
invincibility
level
power-up,
sure
the
is
first of the
great.
game that I've seen. And yeah, he
Yeah,
just missed it.
there's sort of this phenomenon with lesser tier Sonic games where the first at least like third or so is pretty good, and you know you think, oh, I want to play this game. This is much better than the reputation it got, and then you get to the other like 2/3 of it, and you realize that they didn't get a lot of good sort of testing on how level components fit together, and so there are lots of components that feel like cheap hits.
There
and
it is again. That's 2.
Case in point.
Do you know what's really sad? Despite everything you're seeing now, I would still say this is probably the best Game Gear game.
I prefer Sonic 1 for the Master System and Game Gear. But this is, honestly, as much as this looks frustrating, outside of this level, I actually really like the game a lot. Like, in general, my thought is, you know, oh, I could play Sonic Triple Trouble. You know what? That sounds like a pretty good idea. Like, when I'm playing, like, Game Gear Sonic games, because I like to marathon them all in a bunch, especially this time of year, now that Sonic Anniversary has come and gone. Because we're recording this actually on June 25th, 2 days after Sonic turned 25. I usually like to play all of the Game Gear games around this time in a marathon. And when Sonic Triple Trouble comes around, I'm excited because, again, it's a good balance in difficulty between the insanely difficult Sonic 2 and the reasonably fun and jaunty but almost embarrassingly easy Sonic Chaos. Like, outside
Sonic
of a handful of troubles...
Sonic 2 is way too hard, and Sonic Chaos is a breeze, so this would almost be right if it weren't for this level.
This is easily the worst part of the game right here. Everything else is pretty solid.
Begin approaching that part again, let's see what happens.
Now, did you say this was the best
So,
Game Gear
that
game, or
was
one of
2
the best? Because I was going to say
said
the...
3...
Oh,
Oh, you jumped over it. Good work.
Hooray!
But yeah, it's weird.
But you're probably going to drown,
because
aren't you?
not only does the platform seem to like crumble as soon as you stand on it, you get almost sucked underneath it a little bit, so you can't jump. So it's not even just that you have to jump immediately. It's like you don't even know that you have to jump until it's too late. Now, as you'll notice, you have like 5 lives, and in addition to that, 3 continues. So it's not like you're in particular danger of a game over anytime soon. But it is frustrating to die, certainly.
Oh, hey, now we get to fight Knuckles as a boss.
In a strange craft for some reason.
I also believe
He's
you're
doing his best
supposed
Tails
to be
impression.
underwater due to the graphics they're using.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're
this is
still
underwater, and you will run out of air as Sonic if you're not careful. Tails gets to start the
does probably
stage
get
in
But
the Sea
Knuckles
Fox,
doesn't have any
so
air.
he has that going for him, which is helpful. But I didn't point this out earlier, but he loses it if he takes damage. So as soon as you take a hit from one of these objects, you're dead. My personal preference for beating this boss is to spin dash your way all the way up to the right side and just do like cheap hits, like jumping on Knuckles' head, staying on the right corner of the stage. Like, it's an exploitable boss in that way. You still risk a couple of hits, especially as he moves upward.
And Knuckles is dead here, I see.
Yeah, he just sunk to the bottom of the water. He's dead.
Yes, I do not understand what happens after this.
Sonic
It
just
is not
left.
very well explained.
And
Atomic
he shows up
Destroyer. The stage names in this game are very odd for a Sonic game, you know?
They're wordy, yes. Like Sonic and Knuckles had, before it was Mushroom Hill, had Mushroom Valley, and there's a very specific and clear reason why they changed it, which is that, especially for the Act 2 transition, if they had it, the limitation on like sprites causes it to flicker a little bit, the zone title. So they shortened it in order to keep that from happening, because otherwise it's just too many sprites on a scan line.
What I want to know is what a meta Jungorilla is.
Yeah, that was like, some of these words are like nonsense and stuff, which is very unusual for a
Yes.
Sonic game.
Like, it's jungle, clearly, but Junglera, I don't know. And certainly the meta aspect to it, I have no idea.
Maybe metal?
Okay.
I mean,
Well, there's
you know,
nothing in it that's particularly metallic either, outside of a handful of enemies.
So we're gonna say Snarboo?
I was going to say, this looks a lot like Death Egg Zone
Yes.
from Sonic and Knuckles, but this predates it by quite a bit, doesn't it? That's very weird.
Yeah, it like the release date of it and Sonic and Knuckles is actually, they're pretty close together. But this would have had to have been developed somewhat independently. the fact that this looks so much like Death Egg Zone, especially with those tunnels, is surprising to me.
Maybe they had concept art on hand or something?
Probably, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if like they'd had the idea for Death Egg Zone in mind for a while. After all,
Also,
it was supposed to be in Sonic 2 in some form and then got scrapped. So I could see it being one
Sonic
of
2
the
or Sonic
earlier
3?
ideas. Oh, I mean Sonic 2 specifically, in that Death Egg Zone wasn't supposed to just be a two-boss rush stage. It was supposed to be a full level, and from what people are saying, was also supposed to make more use of the chemical plant tile set, much in the way that Hilltop did with Emerald Hill.
That makes sense, because did they actually use chemical plant tiles?
Yes, well, that's the thing. You'll notice in particular that the background is very similar to parts of Chemical Plant. Oh boy, the pipe maze.
Yeah, I die a lot here too. I hope they're looking forward to that.
Everyone loves pipe mazes. I can understand why they went with all these pipes, because they're linear things that don't surprise you.
Wow.
Unless you do that.
Yeah, it's much better than the sort of pipe challenges in the Scrambled Egg Zone from Sonic 2, because those are incredibly evil. Because not only is there only one correct route to progress through them, you have to be holding specific buttons basically to not die while you are in them. And you have very short time to react in a couple of places. It is... like, that whole game is frustrating, but that almost feels like it takes it to another level.
I want to know, for future viewers, if you're seeing this edited, right now we have about 37 minutes to go.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the correct way...
Well, that explains a lot then, yes?
Yeah. Like, that's the correct way to progress, is through jumping across, like, some of those tiles. Yes, okay, yeah, we're making progress now.
I really like these bizarre little blue, like, badniks who are just like... I don't know, they're like
They're
Mr.
like little seals or something? I don't know what
I
they're
was
supposed
gonna
to
say
be.
they're like
Penguins.
Mr. Saturn's mutated brother.
There's a lot of interesting Badnik designs in this that never show up again for whatever reason.
Yeah. Like, we were
Wait,
pointing
you know
out
what those
Sonic
badniks
CD
remind me of?
before.
They look like a character from Achewood. I swear they look like a character from Achewood. I can't remember which one, though.
Like all of them?
See, I feel like they sort of remind me of a visual style, like, halfway between Sonic CD and maybe, dare I say it, Sonic Colors. Because Sonic Colors had a similar sort of, like, almost eye-like motif going on in many of its enemy designs and bosses, too.
And here I eventually have, like, no idea where to go anymore for a little while.
Yeah, you have 10 minutes to complete a stage, and in general they're not particularly long, so what gets you is this sort of backtracking. I mean, if you look up a
I
map
can't
of
remember
any
if I
of
ever
these
made
stages...
it this far, to be fair to you, Bob, I can't remember if I ever made it this far when I was playing this on the Game Gear back in the day,
here's
so...
another oddity. We're playing on 0 lives, which you don't see in Sonic games very often.
Yeah, usually 0 is when you get the game over. This is... like, the only Genesis Sonic game for which that's the case is, I believe, Sonic 3D. Possibly Sonic Spinball 2, but that's... Sonic Spinball is kind of its own thing, because it was just by such a different team that were working sort of independently with the Sega Technical Institute guys. I mean, they had experience with Sonic 2, and obviously a lot of their concepts are based on rejected ideas from Sonic 2. Look at Toxic Cave, look at Hidden Palace Zone, rejected concepts from Sonic 2. They're very similar. There's also the machine, which looks like Cyber City Zone. But yeah, it's surprising that all of the Game Gear games have that as another sort of unique system to them.
Thankfully, the game puts you back at checkpoint if you continue, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Yep.
This
Sonic 3
whole segment
and
just
Sonic
seems
and
like a
Knuckles do
death
that.
trap.
Yep. Oh no!
Because as you can see there, if you jump at the
Yeah.
wrong time in that infinite spring loop or whatever you want to call that,
Yes.
you're gonna get sent into that pit and die.
Yeah, hit the spikes the wrong way, you get knocked in and die. You managed to do that special jump mechanic at just the right time, Bob.
Yeah, usually knockback isn't usually a thing you have to worry about much in Sonic games, but here it can actually be a real threat.
Yeah, the way momentum works in this game is a little odd, just because Sonic tends to accelerate and decelerate pretty slowly, which is generally not so bad, but gets really frustrating when you have to do precise platforming like we saw in that segment with those small platform boxes, which is the correct way to go through. But yeah, that's... It is funny that this is the last stage of the game and is taking up the vast majority of the time of this playthrough.
That's how a lot of Sonic games work, though. Like, you look at Metropolis Zone and Sonic 2, that's a good chunk of the game.
Yeah, it's very long.
Wait, I think I made progress.
Actually, yeah, I guess that's true of Metropolis as well, that you have similar sort of weird backtracking mechanics that you have to get right the first time in order to survive properly.
Like the infinite loop in, what was it, Metropolis Zone Act 2? Or was it Act 1 that had that? I forget.
Well, all of them
Was it
actually
Act
have...
3?
Well, all of them have an infinite vertical loop in
okay.
them, but yeah, they're all like bottomless levels in that sense. Act 1 has, near the end, basically an infinite gap that you can just keep falling through. And one of the worst things about it is that if you roll partway through it, it's possible to hit bumpers in such a way that the game is soft-locked. I have done this before. It is frustrating. Sonic 2 has a lot of soft locks.
Oh, thank you.
At least they're not like Robotnik's deadly speed traps from Sonic 3.
Oh. Well, the thing about the soft lock that I'm thinking of is that you can run out the timer. And most of the
Right.
so-called deadly speed traps in Sonic 3, that's true as well. But Sonic 2 does have the absolute worst soft lock, which is where you try to do the supersonic because you're jumping at the end of the stage, which I just do because it's almost a reflex with me, particularly because of the special stages in Sonic 1 and Sonic CD. It's kind of just a thing that I do in general. And then if you do that in Sonic 2, if you're right at the end, you transform into supersonic. But if you do that in between that tiny little stretch between the signpost and the edge of the screen, you transform and are locked in place.
Ouch.
Yes, and since the timer stops, the only way to get around this is to reset the game.
So now I'm finally at a point where I actually get that monitor.
Oh wow, on the
Unfortunately,
very
it takes
last option.
It takes me forever to actually get there,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, this is one of the ones where I don't know how to reach the monitor off the top of my head, simply because I never rely on it. By this point, I'm already supersonic. Or not, well, I shouldn't say that, because you only collect 5 emeralds anyway. There's no supersonic in this game whatsoever.
I don't think any of the Game Gear games had Supersonic, did they?
Nope.
Sonic Blast had the most hilarious existence of Supersonic, where he shows up as one of the signpost bonuses.
Oh, but
Yes.
you can't actually play as him.
Yes, he shows up there at the end, but he is not in any way playable. Oh, also, I wanted
That is
wanted
such
a while back to say what the specific signpost bonuses were in this game, and I'm going to go ahead and get those out for you right now, so we can look at those and we'll say, oh, that's what they are. So for the signpost, you can get a ring, and that's 10 rings. If it's Sonic, you get a 1-up as Sonic. If it's Tails, you get 10,000 points. If you get Tails, it's the opposite of that. If Knuckles
Okay,
shows
why
up,
would you have
you
a
get to continue.
tip Why would you have a tube that just kills you?
Oh, yeah, that's
Well, to be
evil.
fair, there were those 2 ring boxes, so... But that's kind of a bait right there.
And if you get a Chaos Emerald, which is actually exceedingly rare, I think, I've seen it like maybe once in some playthroughs, it's worth 50 rings at the next stage, which is an odd thing to get, but it's what you get there. Personally, I don't know, it's not useless, but I always sort of feel like the continue is the bigger treat. Especially because, you know, you can start losing rings at any moment. Now, for the record, in the original Sonic the Hedgehog, it was either a picture of Sonic for a 1-up, a picture of Robotnik for nothing, or a picture of a ring for 10 rings, or an exclamation mark for the bonus stage, which you guaranteed to get if you had between 50 and 99 rings. Sonic 2, like, it is almost always Eggman for me, where you get absolutely nothing, or occasionally a ring worth 10 rings. Sonic gets you a 1-up and Tails gets you a continue in that game.
And that's when you get to the monitor.
Yep. And in Sonic Chaos, it's, there's no Chaos Emerald. So, Sonic and Tails, like, the matching character gets you a 1-up and the alternate gets you a continue. Incidentally, I'm going to look it up for Sonic Blast. What Supersonic is... Okay, Supersonic is a 1-up and 30 rings. An Emerald is a continue. And the signpost matching your character between Sonic and Knuckles is a 1-up, and the opposite is 30 rings. Oops.
Oh, I don't get it this time, but you know I'm gonna die again, so...
Oh, yeah. Well, we still have 30 minutes left in this playthrough.
Did I mention I don't like this level much?
I think this
I
level's perfectly fine.
I never
Seems
thought
good
it
to
was
me.
so bad, but then I had an easier time with some of these pipe mazes than you did, so...
Okay, let me ask something here. Is there any way to get those rings on the left side of the pipe?
You know,
Or did
they
there is.
Or did they mess that up?
I'm not sure. Maybe not. Like, it's not that it's useless even then, because then you can say, oh, this is a way of marking the routes that you've actually taken already.
That's a good point. It just seems like a strange
Yeah,
oversight
I know.
to me.
It's odd that you can't get them at all.
I mean, as is the typical case with just about anything, as you get towards the later part of a game, especially a handheld
Yes.
game, yeah, they tend to be like, it doesn't need to work
Yeah.
all the way.
Yeah, that's sort of the Sonic problem in a nutshell, as I'm saying. That the games never start out particularly weakly. Sometimes, you know, they are what they are. But oops.
I'd say in most Sonics, the second or third stage is probably the best one in the game, usually.
Usually, I mean, I have many qualms with the fact that Sonic 2 puts Chemical Plant Zone as its second stage.
I think it's a great
That was
stage.
a very bad move, yeah.
I
Too
could never
difficult?
beat it as a kid. I could not. Act 2 was impossible for me because I didn't know about the incredibly hidden shortcut.
You know, I never
Where you
could
just
get
jump
past
through a
that when
wall.
I was younger either.
Yeah.
It's just not just me.
Like, I was not particularly good at balancing on those platforms, and the fact that there's all that like, polluted water is very strange. Like, everything about it just corrupts the difficulty curve of the game, including the fact that it's the harder occurrence of water in the game. Not only can you get through most of Aquatic Ruin staying high and dry, beyond that fact, it has the air bubbles to give you that extra little boost of energy through the water portions. So if you're underwater, it's not like a particular death sentence.
Wasn't Chemical Plant supposed to come much later in the game, and they kind of reshuffled
It only
everything?
makes sense if it comes later in the game. Otherwise,
Here we go.
yes.
Ah, yeah, bonus stage. And you still have to jump into it. You can actually miss that.
Yep, it only stays on screen for so long, but you know, they're generally in places where that's not a huge issue.
But at least we
So
get
I will
this
say-
this really fun tile set.
Yep. shows up specifically for the 2D special stages, all of them. And this kind of interesting but weird music.
And here's where the Game Gear's physics just kind of give
Yeah,
up.
those loops don't work quite right when you're not rolling. The special stages can be kind of frustrating to get through. Between that and the fact that I didn't realize that you could walk behind springs, when I first tried to play this special stage, I lost, and I saw no way to continue. So my point of advice that is not particularly thoroughly described in this game, and really only makes sense if you've played, especially Sonic 2 for the Game Gear, where this was also the case, you need to know that you can walk behind springs in this game.
Which is pretty much completely unprecedented, I think.
Yes, it's only true in this game. It's not true in any other Sonic game, I think.
Although this stage does actually, what I'm looking at here, I'm getting a lot of flashbacks to Chaotix's tutorial at the moment. A lot.
Oh yes, it's very similar tile set. Like it's a cross between that and Hidden Palace, I'd say.
I'm actually getting a little bit of Echo to,
Oh, Echo the Dolphin?
The Dolphin game, yes. Definitely
Yeah,
I can see that.
feeling some Dolphin. He was very big on Greek architecture in the
And
Yeah.
here's where I think I get stuck, because I just don't know what the game wants me to do anymore.
Are you supposed
Okay.
to jump while spinning?
Yeah, you have to spin dash and then jump afterward. And then there's like the little spring maze that lost me.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
not yet, but I do get stuck eventually.
Yeah.
Okay, this might have been it.
Yeah, this is where I got confused the first time I played it as well.
Yeah, where you can walk behind the springs.
Yes, that's what
But
you
I
have
can't
to
walk
do.
behind it, though, because there's like no room to walk.
Well, that clock was in the way. What you do is you hit the clock.
Yeah,
and
once
then,
you hit the clock,
and
you're
then
supposed to
fall
walk
down,
your
yes.
way through there.
Yeah, he's saying that those things that look like they're foreground platforms are actually background platforms.
It's infuriating until you realize that's what you have to do. I don't even know how I discovered this fact. I think out of just sheer frustration and desperation, I was like, okay, I'll just push against this wall until
Oh, he almost
I
discovered
die.
it by accident just there. I
Yeah.
saw that. This is a pre-recorded playthrough, in case anyone is wondering, so that's
Yeah,
why
we-
Bob
yeah,
can't correct
Yes, we
his...
record
Kinda
all of these
embarrassing to
videos
watch
in
now.
advance.
I feel really embarrassed watching this now, I'm just gonna say.
Oh, no, this is again, all of these mistakes that you're making happened to me the first time I played this game, so...
You're supposed
This-
to hold
this is-
up and then hold
this is-
down. That's what you do. Up, down, up, down. That's the solution.
Yes. Like, this is reasonably accurate to my first time playing this game as well, so... You know, if someone... Like, I think of it as sort of introducing people to all of the real... That was strange. I don't
Yeah,
think
that was really weird.
Bob has completely destroyed the physics.
I don't think I've ever had that happen where that part of the stage was completely solid.
Maybe
like
you have to
that.
be spinning specifically in order
Well,
to
he
enter
gave,
the
I thought
pipes.
he jumped
Kinda-
into it, but
Right.
Although we
Games
have
kinda gave
somewhat
up.
bitched about this, I just want to say I do think that this whole game and this whole franchise on the Master System and you know the Game Gear is very nice. You know, very impressive that they got as much going as they did.
yeah, this actually happened is kind of a marvelous feat. Like, when you consider the idea that Sonic was actually supposed to be pretty taxing for the Genesis. Like, obviously, the two games, Sonic Chaos and Sonic Triple Trouble, are both a little bit slower and feel maybe a little bit more methodical in the way Sonic moves around. But they still feel like pretty solid games that are not bad to play. Like, even if this footage is not really selling you on the game, I think it's a pretty good game.
Well, I mean, you gotta remember, you could have this in your hands
Yeah.
on like the bus in 1994. Like,
Really couldn't do this
Well,
on a
you
Game
could for
Boy.
like 15 seconds at a time at least.
like, let's be honest, this would be like way beyond what a Game Boy could do.
Oh,
Probably.
hey, you finally got a invincibility power-up.
Yeah, I mean the Game
And it
Boy
lasted
physically
2
can't do
seconds.
this, so you know it's got that going. But the Game Boy does run on like 4 batteries for over 10 hours or something, so you know.
True.
Yes,
Yep.
swings roundabouts on that.
Yeah. Like, I feel like it makes a little bit more sense as like, a month or so ago, an artist from Japan that I follow, had actually, like, tweeted something like this, where it was a picture of herself as a child playing the Game Gear, like, plugged in right up against the wall. And it's like, yep, that's fairly relatable. That's sort of what you're supposed to do sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
Yeah, I think it's less of a necessity for the Game Gear than it is for the Nomad, which also ran on something like 4 batteries and was a significantly more powerful system and so had much higher power consumption.
Yeah, the Nomad was like, yeah, it was, you were supposed to like plug it into the mains, and it was
Yes.
like, well, technically you can use it as a handheld, like.
Yes. Like,
Wasn't
it's the
Virtual
Genesis
Boy
that you...
technically handheld too?
Yes.
Yeah,
The-
like, the way I would describe the Nomad is, it's the Genesis that you pack in your carry-ons if you're going on a long trip. Because you still want to plug it into the wall, but you don't necessarily need to have a TV with you in order to play it.
Right, that was
Yeah.
probably the real advantage
Yeah,
of it.
like, it's more like the Wii U in that regard, in that it's not a portable system, but it has its own screen, so you're not tied to a television.
Although in this case, you could actually turn it on without the
Yeah,
mains.
that's true.
I mean, it's important.
Oh god, I
of,
just
uh,
had a scary vision of the future of the Nintendo NX. Oh dear.
People walking around with it in a backpack playing on their like giant pads. Not that anyone buys Nintendo products anymore. I mean,
I mean, the 3DS is reasonably popular, or at least it had been.
yes, well, I mean, I joke about it, but there is a very good reason Nintendo is very, very deliberately exploring the mobile market.
Yeah.
They
Didn't
know.
they post their first loss or something a while back? Or was that might be Apple I was thinking of.
I
Like,
can't imagine Nintendo posted a loss. They don't tend to do that. I don't think they've posted any losses in a while, since the GameCube. But often when companies post losses, they also... It means that they did like a lot of R&D or a lot of like expensive stuff one year with the intention of it, you know,
Yeah, well,
turning
I mean,
back the next year.
that could be possible that maybe like a year or so Nintendo posted a loss for that reason, that they were doing like prototyping NX stuff, and that was costing them money.
But you know, like it would be interesting to see, because they've said no to VR though, which is you know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I
is that
blame
telling
them.
of VR's future?
No, I think it's just Nintendo are not comfortable working in that space at the moment.
Okay.
That, or they've got like a directive from like the mid-90s where they just like angrily cross out the Virtual Boy and just write no fucking VR, and then it's like it's in the company charter. Like you can never go back.
They got the huge grudge in Virtual Boy.
Well, I mean,
I think the bigger problem is that if the NX is supposed to be sort of handheld-ish, which is what people are saying in general, that then it's really going to kind of have to be able to keep itself powered, which means either like a really giant battery or not like super impressive specs, but more like decent. Which, you know,
Why do they keep
Yeah.
putting those there?
Well, okay, look, the reason they've done this, and you know it, it's because this is this is approaching the lost stage, it's the lost area. They want you to not finish the game in one run. They want you to turn it off. They want your battery to run out. They want you to not finish this game, because the moment you finish it, you're like, oh, I finished it, I don't have to play it anymore. But if you have to restart the game, you have to play it all over again. They want you to lose.
Yeah, I should know. There's no saving, there's no passwords. I don't think there's actually any Game Gear games, any battery backup.
I mean, that's not overly untypical of a
were...
Sonic game, though. They didn't usually have passwords or...
Well, there were Game Gear games with battery backup, and none of the Sonic games were they.
Yeah, I'm sure there was an RPG or something on the system that would have used it.
RPGs were like that. I think there were like a couple of like maybe even just Master System ports that were like that, or at least had passwords.
But yeah, so this is Sonic and Tails 2.
Also known as Sonic Triple Trouble in Western countries.
We haven't got to see Knack, even though he's kind of like the main draw of this game, is the fact that he's in it.
He only shows up in special stages, but he is a boss.
One day I'll do a video of Sonic Fires and play as him to make up for it.
Yep.
I mean...
Just play as Bean the Dynamite because everybody needs to know about Dynamite Ducks.
Oh, yes.
I like Bean. I like ducks in general, but I do like Bean. He's, you know, I like that he's a character from a different franchise that just arbitrarily was added into a Sonic game. That's a very, very
But he doesn't feel out of place either.
Yeah.
Well, he's basically, he shows up in the Sonic comics, so he's basically an honorary Sonic character at this point.
In a way, he almost feels like a character who could have come out of Tails' Adventure, like the other aspect Sonic-ish game.
Tails' Adventure is interesting. I should play that sometime.
That's actually a really good game. It's like a Metroidvania kind of thing.
It's actually really nice.
That's where Tails fights the witch from Cauldron, right?
No, that's Tails Sky Patrol, which I will not make excuses for. Well, I will say one nice thing about Tails Sky Patrol, which is that it does a pretty good job of getting Sonic 2 style graphics going on the the Game Gear, excuse me, GBA, what am I talking about?
Yeah, this has a backlight, you can actually see it. Look, Nintendo might think that they're saving my money on batteries, but I couldn't see the screen and now I'm blind.
You almost had it, by the way. What you were supposed to do was go up into that one that was in the corner and then go right. Well, I mean, we'll see it
I'd like to point out that Muteki is a man who knows this stage off by heart. He doesn't need to work this out.
I've played these games so many times. I remember probably like 4 or something years back. I think we all were together for one long stream where I marathoned pretty much every single one of the Game Gear or Master System Sonics.
Guys, I'm good at video games, I promise. Please believe me.
And please believe me when I say this is actually a pretty good game that if you try playing it, you will likely enjoy.
Likely.
Yeah. I mean
you can't guarantee it, but
it's not if your main draw for Sonic is gotta go fast, then you probably won't enjoy these games quite as much because they are nowhere near as fast. And while Sonic 2 feels faster, I think, just at least slightly, it also has all of those blind jumps that make it very, very difficult to go quickly and not die. I mean, if you're particularly worried about this, I will say that the puzzle to this part of the stage reveals itself quite quickly if you look up a map of the stage, which is not hard to find. They are floating around in a few different parts of the
Right, the limited screen space actually makes this harder than it would have been.
Yeah.
Would be.
Right. And while this one is unfortunately, because it is like the best outside of the very first one, like the best of the Game Gear Sonic games, neither this nor Tails' Adventures, with both, for the love of God, so deserved it. Neither of them made it to the Master System, probably because of the age in which they came out. And I think we were discussing this earlier. We were saying Sonic Blast, the one that did get a Master System port, which is ugly and actually kind of graphically glitchy and already not fun to play, did manage to get a Tectoy-based Master System port. So while
Probably
it's
because
rare,
it was CG.
yeah, it had that Donkey Kong country-style graphic. And that was what was all the rage in the latter half of the 90s, even if your game wasn't particularly good. So that's what you got.
Well, it was more of an indicator of a not particularly good game. If your game had those pre-rendered sprites after Donkey Kong, it was probably not a good game.
Yes, it was something that you put on the box to make it look like it was good, without actually having
one
to
exception to that would be Vector Man. Although, did that come out around the same time or slightly after? I
That was
forget.
after Donkey Kong, just like 96.
Which
That's what I
game?
thought.
Wasn't it 95 and 96?
Yeah,
Vector Man
95,
had 2
Vector
releases.
Man 2 was 96.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Decker Man, actually. Huh.
Vector Man, not
Oh,
Decker.
Vector Man. Oh.
Sorry, yeah, I
sorry.
might have mispronounced it.
I misheard what you
Decker
said. I
Man,
blame it
like-
on like lag or call quality or something. Let's go with that. I mean, even then,
It does
like
surprise me.
like Vector Man
sorry,
is
that,
still sort of okay. It's not like a truly great game of the era. It's like it's
Vector
like
Man
a
is the
decent
kind of
take
game
on-
that you
yeah.
you act as great when you had a Mega Drive in '95. Like
Yeah.
that was your system. You're like, yeah, this is such a great new release. Look at the graphics. It's great. It's so much fun. I'm really, really, really genuinely, legitimately enjoying this experience. I like it, you know, it's good, but it's more of a technically interesting visually. I don't think the actual game's all that fun. It's kind of really too hard in a lot of places too.
Yeah,
That was true
like
of a
the
lot of
first one
later
especially
Genesis releases.
was just I could not get around that first boss. The second one I fared better with, but the first one
And
was
Bob
just
falls to his death.
unplayable to me.
Oh, he made it.
nice.
Okay, going back to something, seeing all these tubes, you know, and just seeing you get stuck here. Going back to something we mentioned earlier, has anybody from Sega ever been interviewed about the stupid barrels from Sonic 3?
Probably.
Has anyone ever just gone up to an employee of Sega, you know, they're doing a sit-down interview, maybe talking about Sonic games, it's like, so I have one final question for you. What the hell is the deal with the barrels from Sonic 3? Has anyone ever called them out for that? I have to wonder at this point.
Well, the funny thing about the barrel is that if that stage had come, like, later on in the game, like, maybe if it was a Sonic and Knuckles level, especially because then they'd have a little bit more time to figure out how they want to introduce the way the barrel works. Like, then they could say, you know, oh, we've already introduced a couple mechanics where pressing up and down are how you get around. For example,
thank you.
the elevators in Mushroom Hill Zone. You have to press down in order to get them to move up. Nobody really seems to have much of a problem with those. They make sense.
Let's never discuss
They're a lot
that
more
again.
intuitive.
Yeah, and then there are also the spring platforms in Ice Cap Zone, where if you like press up and down at the right time, you can gain a significant amount of height. So it's just that one barrel, and I think part of the problem is that they move up and down when you jump as well. So it seems like the correct thing to do is time your jumps properly.
We can talk about something else now, by the way. We're at the final boss.
No, we gotta keep talking about the barrels. Actually, I actually got
so
through
rocket
those
boots.
barrels jumping once. Like hey, that guy! This really is triple trouble.
It's quadruple trouble.
Oh my god, there's
Aspect-
too much trouble.
Aspect never really... They kept basing their games off of Sonic CD, and the inclusion of Metal Sonic here is an excellent example of that fact.
I feel
will
like
say that
these
he's
games helped contribute to Metal Sonic being like a remaining character in the franchise, because I don't think
Yeah.
enough people played CD for it to really take.
Well, it got that PC
Nobody
port
played
in the
Chaotix
later
either.
90s. Like, I think that's probably got something to do with it. That, in addition to a few appearances in the comics that sort of made him out to be actually a pretty impressive character.
He
And
doesn't
the
do
OVA. He was
anything.
pretty great in the OVA.
Yeah, it's funny, this is exactly the same attack pattern as the final boss in Sonic Chaos, except a little bit easier because he's basically vulnerable from all angles. I guess technically a combination of that and the final boss from Sonic 3, the arm guy. that doesn't show up in normal Lockdown with Sonic and Knuckles mode unless you play as Knuckles.
Yeah, the weird death
Yeah.
claw thing or whatever you want to call
Yes, the strange big arm, I guess, is the correct name for it. It showed up in Generation
Yeah, that's right,
3DS,
it's Big Arm,
and that's
I
what
think.
they called it, I think.
So, that was a... What is this, like Wonder Boy or something? Why'd Sonic end
It's
up in
just
a teleporter?
I don't know. That's the only one of its sort. I don't know if
Oh,
there were
there's
any...
Knack.
Yep,
There he is.
he shows up once again. Like, this might be
And
your
he's
first...
gone.
Yeah, if you've never
He
gone
shows
into
up
the
once
special
for the
stages...
first time.
Yeah, he shows up in every special stage, and that's his other location. Outside of the special stages.
Wait,
What is he doing
is
here?
this
I
really
don't
the
know.
final boss? Really?
He's got multiple phases.
Well, yeah,
at
he's
least.
got
Oh,
several
okay.
forms. That's the easy form. Now it gets a
Really?
little bit more challenging.
I just
A
love
little
that
bit.
Knack's there and he's just like, oh shit, I gotta run. And that's it. Like, that's the whole game if you can't get the bonus stages.
Yes.
Well, I guess they had
Like,
to
if anything-
include him just because he's on the box art. They
Yeah.
had to have him at least once in the game
Yeah.
if you couldn't get to the bonus stages, which you likely wouldn't your first time
See,
through.
if anything, it would mean that you'd think Triple Trouble referred to Metal Sonic, as we were saying.
Like, because Knack has a gun, but he doesn't have a gun in anything we've seen. It's just a weird Robotnik Eggman at the top here. Not flying in his usual vehicle sort of thing. It's like a
Yeah, it's...
weird...
And here, despite all
Brown
logic,
box.
you're supposed to hit the electricity parts. You think it would hurt you, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
I love
I think what you're
counterintuitivity.
supposed to do is hit him at a specific time, like right before he charges his shot. He only takes one hit, but you have to time it like right after that electricity fades and before
And
he
this
does
part
his
is-
normal shot.
And this part is pretty much luck. If you don't have any rings, you're just not gonna get through this, because this part is terrible.
Hey, it's,
I will
it's a
admit
callback to
the-
Scrap Brain, or Final Zone.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is very Scrap Brain final or
Yeah.
Final Zone.
Actually, I was going to say
Well,
it reminded
was
me a little bit of the final boss from Sonic 2 for Master System Game Gear 2, except this time Eggman's the one who travels through the tube and not Sonic. Because especially like it's gonna like the main area is going to start getting electrified in a little bit. Like what he does is he slows down, he electrifies the chamber, and then he starts speeding up again. But what Bob's doing here is how I normally beat the level, which is just stay right there and just keep getting as many cheap hits as I can while I've got the ring. Otherwise,
Right,
this
you
boss
could-
takes way too long.
If you don't have a ring, you're just gonna have to die.
You just gotta
Yeah,
have to die.
you have to either die or just wait forever, and you're still likely to get hit by one of those damn lasers. But yeah, there you go. There you're seeing him getting the area electrified.
Now here's a question. In the intro, he has a completely different sort of weird craft or contraption. That doesn't seem to ever show up in the main game.
Nope, it does not.
And Robotnik is dead.
Despite the
Series
fact
over.
that it's, you know, it would be an appropriate giant mech final boss for a stage like this. It does not show up.
No, it's
Not
just
even
from
if
the
you get
intro,
all
and-
of the emeralds.
Wait, and now Tails, or not Tails, Jesus Christ, Knuckles was in prison? Why?
Well, he was imprisoned for drowning.
Oh.
There's no
Well, I
drowning
guess,
allowed.
yeah, maybe drowning is a crime or something.
It's,
Punishable by imprisonment in the Death Egg, or whatever that stage was called. I already forgot.
yeah, oh, isn't it called like the nuclear explosion death zone or something like that?
Which stage?
Oh, hi, Knack.
Yep.
Jesus, don't laugh and jerk your crotch, man. That's just too much.
Try again.
So you're supposed
Let's
to only
never
get 4 more of
discuss any
those?
of that again.
Thanks for joining us on Sonic Triple Troubles.
That was fun.